Joints means joints কাকে বলে? Connection or junction between two or more than two. In some cases, three bones may also take place. So joints is connection between two or more than two bones. According to function, they are broadly classified into two groups. One is Synovial and one is diarthrosis. Synovial and diarthrosis. Synovial again divides into two. Synovial again divides into two. Fibrous joint and cartilaginous joint. Fibrous joints where no movement is permissible. Actually, we know joints move, but here cartilaginous joint doesn't move. It is mostly found in the cranial bones. Mathar bones gulo ki নড়াচড়া করে? Mostly found in the cranial bones. And cartilaginous joint, here limited movement is possible. খুব বেশি মুভ করে না, কিন্তু সামান্য করে। লিমিটেড মুভমেন্ট ইজ পসিবল ইন cartilaginous joint. This cartilaginous joint again divides into two: primary cartilaginous and secondary cartilaginous. And secondary. Secondary cartilaginous joint. Now, I shall discuss first about the fibrous joint. Fibrous joints again divided into fibrous joint, it is divided into suture. Sutures. These sutures are mostly found in the cranial bones. Number one, they are again subdivided into serrate suture. Serrate suture. এই ছবিগুলো আপনি দাও তো এখানে, যে ছবিগুলো পাঠিয়ে দাও তো। serrate. Actually, the joint takes place between the ends of the long bones, sometimes between the edges of the bones. In case of flat bone, by their edges they are articulated, and some small bones, as for example carpal and tarsal bones, they are joined by their surfaces. তাহলে সারফেস দিয়ে জয়েন্ট হতে পারে, এজ দিয়ে জয়েন্ট হতে পারে, অ্যান্ড বাই দ্য এন্ড, এইসব বড় বড় বোনগুলো বাই দ্য এন্ডস। নাও serrate suture is found in the between সরো সরিয়ে সরো, এটা না, এটা না, সরো সরো, হ্যাঁ আগেরটা আগেরটা। Here you see, these are the examples of serrate suture. Serrate suture, actually these two bones is known as parietal bones. Parietal bones is articulating with opposite side. This joint is known as serrate. Serrate. Now second, denticulate. Denticulate. Denticulate suture is found between the posterior end of the parietal bones and occipital bones. এই যে জংশনটা ল্যামডয়েড সুচার বলে, ল্যামডয়েড সুচার, অ্যাকচুয়ালি ইট ইজ দ্য এক্সাম্পল অফ ডেন্টিকিউলেট সুচার, ডেন্টিকিউলেট। থার্ড, স্কোয়ামাস সুচার। Squamous. Here what happens, the parietal bone and temporal bone, these two bones actually overlaps. Here there is overlapping of the two bones. This kind of joint is known as squamous. Squamous. When you will study the skull bones, here you will see this bone, parietal bones, and squamous part of the temporal bone, they are actually overlaps. This overlapping type of joint is known as squamous. Right? Another joints, that is actually I have forgotten the name. That joint takes place between palatine process of the maxilla and horizontal part of the palatine bone. Actually it will be difficult for you because you have not seen these joints. Whenever you will see, it will be easy for you when you see the joints. I think it is, you write it down, it is simple joint বা plain joint, এরকম কিছু হবে আর কি। মানে একটু আমার কনফিউশন আছে, পরে তোকে বলবো আর কি, ওটা লিখবে সিম্পল কিংবা প্লেন জয়েন্টস। আর একটা জয়েন্ট হচ্ছে, তার নাম হচ্ছে সিন্ডাইলেসিস। নামটা খুবই জটিল, সিন্ডাইলেসিস, কিন্তু সেটা হচ্ছে কি সিন্ডাইলেসিস। ডাইলেসিস। It actually it is a wedge and groove joint. There is a bone known as vomer. There is a skull bone known as vomer, that is at the upper part. It forms like a groove, this groove, and another from above, that is called sphenoid bone, rostrum of sphenoid bones. They are like this. This joint is known as Syndesmosis joint. Between the upper part of the vomer and rostrum of the sphenoid, this is known as Syndesmosis. Now come to they are all the subdivision of sutures. Now after suture, next fibrous joint is Syndesmosis. Syndesmosis. Third is Gomphosis. Sutures, Syndesmosis and Gomphosis, they are three subdivisions of the fibrous joint. Now again I am repeating, fibrous joint is that type of joint where no movement is permissible. It is again subdivided into three groups: sutures, Syndesmosis and Gomphosis. Suture joints generally found within the cranial bones. Syndesmosis, here you have heard this name perhaps. It is found between the lower end of the radius and ulna. Radius and ulna, you have heard the name of interosseous membrane. Interosseous membrane, by interosseous membrane, the shaft of the long bones are connected. They are actually Syndesmosis. Sometimes lower end of the tibia fibula, here you will get interosseous ligament. Here and above within the shaft you will get interosseous membrane. So interosseous membrane or interosseous ligaments binds the bones. That type of joint is known as Syndesmosis. Right? They are fibrous joint. No movement takes place there. Gomphosis example is tooth. Tooth rise within the socket by fibrous tissue. So tooth, it is a type of joint that is called Gomphosis. So these are all the fibrous joint. Now come to the cartilaginous joint. Cartilaginous. Cartilaginous is primary cartilaginous. Primary. Primary cartilaginous joint is found in the growing long bones. Suppose I am drawing a growing long bones. This is cartilaginous plate, and this is epiphysis. This is epiphysis. Epiphysis, diaphysis. They are connected by a cartilaginous plate. Actually, this kind of joint ultimately will be converted into bones. It will be in adult condition. They will no longer remain there. They will be converted into bones. So they are actually temporary joints. So primary cartilaginous joints is not a permanent joint, they will be converted into bone. এই একটা এক্সাম্পল, বুঝতে পারলি? Now secondary cartilaginous joint. Secondary cartilaginous joint. Actually this type of joints, a cartilaginous joint and fibrous joint, they do not have any cavity. They are solid joints. They don't have any cavity, they are solid joints. Now secondary cartilaginous joint, it is generally found along the midline. They are generally found along the midline. One example is symphysis pubis. Symphysis pubis is present at the pelvis. There are two pelvic bones, that is pubis. Between the two pubis, this joint lies. Now here you see actually first example of serrated joints. This was the Syndesmosis between the rostrum of the femur and femur. Actually, I forgot to show you. This is the Gomphosis. This is the root of the tooth and the socket. They are actually sutural joints, and this is the denticulate joint. They are edged like tooth-like. So these are the examples of the fibrous joint. Now come to the secondary cartilaginous joint. একটু সরাও তো দেখি, একটু সরাও। দাও, একটু দাও, এটা না দাও, সরাও। 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 তো একটাই আসছে, কি ব্যাপার? নাই? হ্যাঁ, তাও এখানে রাখো, এখানে রাখো। This is the primary cartilaginous joint, temporary joint. This is the secondary cartilaginous joint. Here you see, in case of secondary cartilaginous joints, it will persist throughout life. what happens, suppose this is the pubis and another pubis on the other side. These two pubic bones, their surface is covered by hyaline cartilage. Their surface is covered by hyaline cartilage. Suppose this is hyaline cartilage. Now another cartilage lies in between them. That is called fibrocartilage. That is called fibrocartilage. That is called fibrocartilage. Here lies the fibrocartilage. So this is the configuration of secondary cartilaginous joint. Their surfaces is covered by hyaline cartilage, and between them there is a fibrocartilage. Because of the presence of this fibrocartilage, this joint will never ossify into bone. কিন্তু আগেরটা ossify করে গেছিল bone. So this is the secondary cartilaginous joint. Here limited movement is possible, and it is generally found along the midline, but there is some exception. One exception is between basisphenoid and basioccipitalis. সেটা এখন তোরা বুঝতে পারবি না, পরে যখন ওগুলো পড়াবো আবার যখন তোর পড়াবো আর কি, স্কাল পড়াবো তখন বুঝতে পারবি। সেটা স্কালের বেস অফ দ্য স্কালের বোনস, সেটা যদিও মিড লাইনে থাকে, বাট দে আর প্রাইমারি কার্টিলেজিয়াস জয়েন্ট। নাও along the midline, আরেকটা মিডলাইন হচ্ছে ইন্টারভার্টিব্রাল ডিস্ক। যদি তোকে জিজ্ঞেস করে, যদি ভার্টিব্রাতে জিজ্ঞেস হতে পারে, ইন্টারভার্টিব্রাল ডিস্ক যেটা বিটুইন টু ভার্টিব্রা যে জয়েন্টসটা, সেটা হচ্ছে ইন্টারভার্টিব্রাল ডিস্ক। দ্যাট ইজ অলসো known as secondary cartilaginous joint. Another cartilaginous joint here found between the manubrium sterni and body of the sternum, that is manubriosternal joint. Here this is also called secondary cartilaginous joint. এগুলো হচ্ছে secondary cartilaginous joint এর example. Hello. So these are the examples of primary and secondary cartilaginous joint. Now come to the most common joints, numerous, that is synovial joint. Synovial joint. Synovial joint. This joint contains cavity. Other joints didn't have any cavity, but these synovial joints, it is also known as diarthrosis. It contains cavity, right? Synovial joint has been classified in different way. Number one, according to the number of bones which take part in the formation of the joint, then it is known as simple joint, complex joint, and compound joint. Simple joints when two bones is taking part in the formation of the joint. Compound joints when more than two. In case of wrist joint, here you will get at the lower end of the radius, you will get two carpal bones. So three bones are actually taking part in this joint. So this joint is compound. and complex joint. Complex joint is when the joint cavity is divided hollow. According to the bones taking part in the formation of the joints, they are simple, complex and compound. Now, according to the axis of movement, they are again divided into three. When they are moving at one axis, that is called uniaxial joint. When movements are taking place along two axes, then it is called biaxial joint, and when more than two, that is polyaxial joint. Before that, I will discuss the common features of a synovial joint. Sometimes, if you can master this class, and if any joint comes, suppose in your exam, one joint must come. Any joint, big joint, knee joint, shoulder joint, ankle joint, এরকম অনেক জয়েন্ট আসবে। এবার তোর কমন পড়েনি, কিছু কমন পড়েনি, এই যে জেনারেল ডিসকাশন যেটা বলছি, সেই জেনারেল ডিসকাশন থেকে যদি কিছু লিখে দিতে পারিস, অন্তত পক্ষে কিছু মার্কস পাবি। বুঝতে পারলি তো? হ্যাঁ, বেসিক। তাহলে এই জেনারেল ডিসকাশন যদি মনে থাকে, ইফ ইউ ক্যান রাইট ইট ডাউন, ইউ উইল গেট সাম মার্কস। বুঝতে পারলি তো? তাহলে synovial joints এর some common features. One of the most important synovial joint is hip joint. It is one of the synovial joints. Here you see two bones have taken part. Here I am drawing. Suppose there is a gap between the two bones and it is covered by a fibrous capsule. So, synovial joints, number one criteria is it will contain cavity. It will be enveloped by a tough fibrous capsule, that is called capsular ligament. Capsular ligament. Capsular ligament. Now, the capsule internally, this capsule will be lined by a membrane that is called synovial membrane. I am drawing. It will be internally it will be internally lined by synovial membrane, and the ends of the bone, here these two ends, that end will be covered by a cartilage that is called articular cartilage. Articular cartilage. You have seen the end of the long bones, which is glistening and very smooth. That is actually the part which is covered by cartilage. Most of the cartilage is hyaline in nature. Most of the cartilage, I mean articular cartilage, which actually caps the end of the long bones, which is taking part in the formation of the joint, that is hyaline in nature. In some cases, some fibrocartilage also present. In case of membrane bone, where membrane bone is taking part in the synovial joint, their articular surface may be fibrocartilage, but mostly it is hyaline cartilage. কথাটা বুঝতে পারলি? হাইলিন কার্টিলেজ। যেমন ধর এখানে একটা জয়েন্ট আছে, টেম্পোরোম্যান্ডিবুলার জয়েন্ট। টেম্পোরোম্যান্ডিবুলার জয়েন্ট between the mandible and temporal bone. As mandible is actually membrane bone, so their surface is covered by fibrocartilage. So in some cases, articular cartilage is fibrocartilage, but in maximum cases, articular cartilage is hyaline cartilage. Now here you see the synovial membrane has lined the inner aspect of the capsule and also the bones, which is not covered by articular cartilage. So up to that it has stopped. Here also you see, up to that, where hyaline cartilage is present, articular cartilage is present, here it has stopped. It means it does not cover, synovial membrane does not cover articular cartilage. It only lines the inner aspect of the capsule as well as inner aspect of the bone which lies within the capsule. মানে যে বোনসটা ধর আছে ভেতর আছে, ক্যাপসুলের ভিতর আছে, অথচ তার মানে নেই, কি বলে, আর্টিকুলার কার্টিলেজের বাইরে যে বোনসটা, যেটুকু পার্ট, দ্যাট উইল বি কভার্ড বাই দ্য সাইনোভিয়াল মেমব্রেন। এখানে এইটুকু পার্ট ইট ইজ উইদিন দ্য ক্যাপসুল বাট আউটসাইড দ্য হায়ালিন কার্টিলেজ বা আর্টিকুলার কার্টিলেজ, সো ইট হ্যাজ কভার্ড বাই দ্য সাইনোভিয়াল মেমব্রেন। এইটুকুলো সাইনোভিয়াল মেমব্রেন সম্পর্কে বলতে গেলে একটু বলতে হবে, ইট লাইন্স দ্য ইনার অ্যাসপেক্ট অফ দ্য ক্যাপসুল and the inner portion of the bone which is devoid of articular cartilage, that is covered by synovial membrane, right? তাহলে কটা বৈশিষ্ট্য হলো, কটা ক্যারেক্টারিস্টিক? একটা হলো একটা জয়েন্ট ক্যাভিটি আছে, একটা ফাইব্রাস ক্যাপসুল, synovial membrane. Now this joint cavity contains synovial fluid. সব বোন একটা সাইনোভিয়াল ফ্লুইড থাকে, লুব্রিকেটিং ফ্লুইড, সবসময় লুব্রিকেট করছে। তাহলে দিস পোর্শন ইজ ফিল্ড উইথ লুব্রিকেটিং ফ্লুইড, দ্যাট ইজ কল্ড সাইনোভিয়াল ফ্লুইড। Synovial fluid. Sometimes this joint may be divided by some fibrocartilage. Here you see this joint has been completely separated into two compartments by cartilage, fibrocartilage. So in some cases the joints may be divided into, completely divided or partially divided into two compartments. That type of joint I have called previously complex joint. In case of knee joint is actually partially separated into two compartments. So knee joint is complex joint. তাহলে একটা ফাইব্রোকার্টিলেজ ডিভাইড হতে পারে। নাম্বার, so these are the components of a synovial joint, and within the joint there may be some ligaments. Within the joints or outside the joint there may be ligaments. Ligaments actually binds the joint. Ligaments are কাজ কি? What is the function of ligaments? What?
To join two bones together in conjunction.
হ্যাঁ, তাহলে অ্যাকচুয়ালি দুটো বোনসে apart from capsular ligament there is extra support by ligaments. They give extra support. That ligaments may be intracapsular or outside capsule, intracapsular or extracapsular, right? Now how much stability a ligament gives to the joint? Actually what happens, suppose you have experienced this kind of thing, sprain of the ankle. কখনো কি স্প্রেন হয় না? স্প্রেন, অ্যাঙ্কেল স্প্রেন হয়ে গেল, তো এই যে শর্ট টাইমের জন্য যে তোর একটা স্ট্রেচি হলো, অ্যাকচুয়ালি দ্যাট ইজ প্রোটেক্টেড বাই লিগামেন্টস, সেটা লিগামেন্ট প্রোটেক্ট করে। কিন্তু ইফ there is continuous pressure, the ligaments will not be able to withstand. যদি একটা জয়েন্ট ধর, একটা আমার নি জয়েন্টকে আমি যদি কন্টিনিউয়াস প্রেশার রাখি, টু সাম এক্সটেন্ট হ্যাঁ it can withstand the pressure, but if continuous pressure is given, that ligament will give way, আর লিগামেন্ট কাজ করবে না, লিগামেন্ট স্ট্রেচ হয়ে যাবে। If ligament once is stretched, it will not come to its normal length. স্ট্রেচ হয়ে গেল, তারপর কি হবে? তো যে কোনো সময় তো জয়েন্টটা ডিসলোকেট হয়ে যেতে পারে। কন্টিনিউয়াস সাপোর্ট কে দেয়? Muscles around the joints. So for the stability of the joint, muscle around the joint is most important. দেখবি ডাক্তারদের কাছে গেলে, অস্টিওআর্থ্রাইটিক পেশেন্ট যদি যাই, ডাক্তাররা এইসব তো মাসলের এক্সারসাইজ দেয়, quadriceps muscles এক্সারসাইজ দেয়। ইফ দিস মাসল get strong, they will stabilize the joint and pain will be removed. বুঝতে পারলি? এটা হচ্ছে তোর stability of the joint. Now one by one I shall discuss some the components of the synovial joint. Number one, check capsule. Capsule is a fibrous covering. Now come to the synovial membrane. Synovial membrane is actually, it is a very delicate membrane consisting of fiber as well as cells. It consists of cells and fiber. The cells of the synovial membrane ultrastructurally, two kinds of cells are found, group A, group B, but type A and type B cells. Type A cells, actually it is like macrophage. It resembles macrophage, and type B cells is akin to fibroblast. Type A cells actually liberates, as a whole synovial membrane secretes synovial fluid. Synovial membrane secretes synovial fluid. Now type A cells secrete one of the important component of the synovial fluid, that is hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid actually imparts the viscosity of the fluid. Viscosity মানে পিছলে ভাব, viscosity. তাহলে viscosity, who imparts viscosity? Actually hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid secreted by type A cells. Type B cells secrete some protein. Type A cells, as it is like macrophage, so it actually, if there is any debris within the synovial cavity, sometimes some cartilage cells, worn out cartilage cells, or any particulate matter within the joint, they actually engulf. Macrophages কাজ কি? Engulfing. So they are doing that type of function. Now, if viscosity increases, what will happen? Actually, in cold weather, morning time দেখবি viscosity বেশি থাকে। Viscosity আবার যদি বেশি হয়ে যায় আবার মুশকিল আছে। If there is increased viscosity, the joint will be stiff. সেই জন্য যাদের অস্টিওআর্থ্রাইটিস পেশেন্ট আছে দেখবি সকালবেলায় হাঁটতে গিয়ে প্রথমে খুব জয়েন্টে স্টিফ হয়ে থাকে, কিছুক্ষণ হাঁটার পর আবার ঠিক হয়ে যায় আর কি। বুঝতে পারলি? So this is the stiffness due to the increased viscosity of the synovial fluid, right? So these are the synovial membrane. Now come to the articular cartilage. I have already told you articular cartilage, mostly hyaline in nature. In some cases it is fibrocartilage. Actually it is porous structure. There is some pores. Within this is pores. It absorbs synovial fluid. Sponge moto. It absorbs synovial fluid. When there will be pressure, when the two bones will press them, it squeezes this fluid. তখন ফ্লুইডটা বেরিয়ে আসবে and it will lubricate the joint. So it is porous structure and it absorbs the synovial fluid. When there will be pressure, that fluid will come out and lubricate the joint. Air thickness, actually this hyaline cartilage, which is here known as articular cartilage, their thickness is not uniform. This part is called, this convex part is called male type and this concave part is called female type. So here this articular cartilage at the center it will be thickened, then the periphery, here it is thickened, then the periphery, and in case of female component, at the center it is thin and at the periphery it is thick. Here it is thick and at the center it is thin. Just opposite. তাহলে articular cartilage, male part, convex part is thickest here and female part বলে তাহলে সেন্ট্রাল মিডিল কাছে থিক ইন কেস অফ কনভেক্স সারফেসটা, আর এটা থিন, পেরিফেরিটা থিক আর পেরিফেরিটা থিন। হলো? আচ্ছা, অ্যাকচুয়ালি articular cartilage, how articular cartilage is very important. Articular cartilage actually it doesn't have any nerve supply, it doesn't have any blood supply. তাহলে articular cartilage most important part, ওটা নষ্ট হয়ে গেলেই তো সারা জীবন তো আর হাঁটতে পারবি না, আর এর কোনো ব্লাড সাপ্লাইও নেই, নার্ভ সাপ্লাইও নেই। তাহলে from where it gets its nutrition? বলো, from where it gets nutrition? It doesn't have any blood supply, it does not have any nerve supply. It gets its blood supply, peripheral part, from the capillaries or blood vessels around it. From there it gets, and from central part gets its nutrition from synovial fluid. Synovial fluid gives nutrition. বুঝতে পারলি?